This is Ellis with The Verge, and today we're going to be looking at the best keyboards and keyboard cases for your iPad. First up is the Logitech tablet keyboard, which looks a lot like Apple's white keyboard, but it's plastic, which means it's lighter, and it's black and has some blue accents. It includes a pretty decent stand that doubles as a case, and it has magnets to keep it closed, so when you flip it open, there are two modes, upright and at more of an angle, depending on what your preference is, and it's portrait and landscape. It feels like a full keyboard, and the key action is great, but there's no function row like Apple's keyboard has. This thing lasts 10 months on 4 AAA batteries, which is nice for traveling. It's reasonable at $70, which is the same as Apple's, but this one also includes a stand. The Adonit Writer Plus keyboard folio looks nice on the outside with its red accents, but once you try to get your iPad inside, you realize it's not made out of that great quality. So this thing does have a removable keyboard, which is a nice touch, and the keys are small, but they work well. They're nice and firm, and there is a function row for iPad-specific functions that you might want to use. You can either use the keyboard in its default setting, or you can remove it and use magnets to align the keyboard with the rest of the case, but the magnets are finicky and don't work that well, and it's expensive at $100. The Logitech Solar Keyboard Folio is a new one, and it's expensive at $129.99, but I think it's one of our favorite options. It's kind of everything the Adonit Writer Plus wants to be, but it's excellent build quality. The back is actually fully embedded, so it's not flopping around, and it's actually solar powered. Even though you can use ambient light in your room, that can give you 2 years of use for charging it for 6 hours. So the keyboard feels very solid since it's embedded into the body, and we really like the design. We like the most is medium mode when you flip it down so you can see the additional function keys when you're on the plane or when you're watching it on a table. It's unique and stylish. It's definitely a winner. The TouchFire keyboard was born on Kickstarter, and it kind of looks like a fruit roll-up for your iPad. It's made out of conductive silicone rubber, and it uses magnets to align its keys on your iPad screen. And believe it or not, it actually does help a lot, because since each key has 4 contact points towards the center of the key on the TouchFire, even if you touch the sides of a key, it actually will make contact in the center of the key, and it does work. It feels expensive at $49.99, but you'll also want a smart cover since it magnetically attaches to that, and you probably don't want to be typing flat on your table. The ClamCase turns your iPad into a plastic netbook, so it's pretty heavy and also gets oily like the original MacBook since it's plastic. During my tests, I found the ClamCase nearly impossible to type on because of its cramped keyboard with flat keys and no space between the keys. But the space bar is the biggest problem because you're hitting it pretty frequently and it just doesn't work because it only has seems like one contact point with the sensor. So some nice features are its great hinge for flipping it around. It protects your iPad, but it's very top heavy and flops around a lot if you're moving at all. Lots of people swear by this thing, but I passed it around the office and nobody liked it. It's also a small fortune at $150. Next is the Logitech Ultra Thin Keyboard Folio, which is pretty ingenious. It acts as a smart cover for your iPad, and since it's also aluminum, it kind of looks like you have 2 iPads sandwiched together. It's the thinnest and lightest hardware I tested besides the TouchFire, and it has a magnetic latch on the side, but also a magnetic slot for your iPad, which keeps it very securely locked in. It's good for portrait and landscape mode, but it's only cocked at one angle, so it's going to be pretty upright. The keyboard is fine, but you're making a compromise because it's so thin, so the keys are kind of plasticky. Given what you're holding in your hand, it seems expensive for $99, but it's the only smart cover replacement here, and it works really well. The Targus Verge keyboard folio looks nice on the outside with his leather case and moleskin-esque strap, and there's even a stylus holder. Once you start using it, you realize it's not so great. The keys are square, firm, and responsive, and there are some interesting function keys like select all, but there's a real deal breaker here with the keyboard that I just can't recommend it. There's no colon key. You have to activate colon. In its place is an apostrophe, which is slid over, so it's very confusing when you're using it. And not only that, but the iPad doesn't feel too firmly in place when you want to touch the screen. But besides that, it feels like it's a good product quality for $90, but because of the missing keys, I can't possibly recommend it. Next up is the Apple wireless keyboard. Apple is known for its great keyboards, and this thing is terrific quality, very good feedback from the keys, replaceable AA batteries, so you're good for traveling. It's on the heavy side for a keyboard, but it's also the best built. Since it's white, it's prone to get very dirty, and there aren't any iPad-specific function keys like all of its competitors. $69.99 is a great deal for what you get, and you can also use it for your computer. But you'll need to spend a bit more money propping up your iPad using Apple's own smart cover, or even better, in cases, ultra-modern origami, which is a case for your keyboard and a stand for your iPad. The Belkin Your Type keyboard folio is a big pain in the ass to get your iPad in and out of. It fits really snug, but once you do get it in, you realize that your iPad is very much upright, and you kind of have to crane your neck down to be able to see what's going on screen. But you can step back a little bit because it does have a removable Velcro keyboard, which you might like or you might not like. So the keyboard feels nice to use until you realize that it's not registering any key presses unless you press directly down onto the key. The corners, if you press down on them, it doesn't work. There's a nice magnetized flap on the top too, but there are no magnets to turn off your iPad when you close it. Not recommending Belkin Your Type at $99. The Zagg Folio is the third generation of Zagg's famous iPad keyboard folios, and it is really good. It holds the iPad firmly in place, and it's also feels very strong, can protect your iPad when it's all closed. The carbon fiber back's a bit tacky, but there's a clip that keeps it closed, which is nice, and the aluminum keyboard feels solid and durable. Lastly, if you do want to use the iPad in portrait mode, you can remove the keyboard and scrap the case that props the whole thing up, which is a nice touch. It's $99.99, and you will get months of battery life according to Zagg. The Kensington key stand unfolds from a unique felt foldable enclosure into a flat iPad keyboard with just one place to put your iPad. So you can do portrait and landscape, though you really just have one viewing angle to choose from. Keys depress hard and fast, though the keyboard itself does flex a little as you use it. There are a lot of function buttons and the brightness button, which is great. Not many of them have that. And we like that it folds up for portability, and there's a magnetic enclosure to make sure it stays closed. The Kensington key stand at $69.99 is a great buy. The Scotia Keypad P2 is a tank. It's got nice leather. It's very protective. It has a kickstand, but that flap you see on the top, it's always in the way. The water-resistant silicone keyboard is very mushy and hard to feel out. It's also cramped. You're going to be making a lot of mistakes, especially since this thing also only has one key between the L and the Enter keys. Once you're using it, you realize, too, that when you're touching the iPad screen, a little shove will quickly knock over the kickstand. 75 hours of battery life on the Scotia keypad. It's $79.99. In the end, if you're going to be doing a ton of typing on your iPad, you can't do any better than Apple's wireless keyboard. If portability is your top priority, Logitech's ultra-thin keyboard cover is both practical and ingenious. If money isn't an object, Logitech's brand new Solar keyboard folio never runs out of battery, and its media mode is perfect for watching movies while you're on the go. Lastly, if you're going to be tossing your iPad in your backpack a lot, or it's going to be banging around a lot in the car, you can't beat the Zagg Folio for durability.